Hey everyone, welcome to Youth Bombs. I'm Craig.
I'm David.
And I'm Michael.
And we're the voice of young conservatives in Alachua County. The Bashar al-Assad government in Syria has fallen. Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham has taken over the nation. There's significant debate over the ideology of this group, whether they can be reasoned with or not, and whether they are a better alternative than the Assad government. I say definitely not. Michael, I'm sure that you have a comment on this. What do you think of the recent developments?
Of course. Well, in summary, it's bad. There's no really good way to split what has happened in Syria. The HTS they've tried to market themselves as moderates, and this goes back quite a while, where we've been, from the beginning of the Syrian civil war, we've been seeing that there has been the HTS has been trying to say they're the moderate form of government, the moderate opposition in Syria, and that's just not true. At the end of the day, if you were to look into some of their history, the history of their leader, whose name is escaping me, but he is going back to the very beginning, the HTS was originally called al-Nusra, which was a branch of Al-Qaeda. There's really no other way to put it. The leader of the HTS was formerly in Al-Qaeda, was also formerly a part of ISIS. They are, at the end of the day, extremists. They are Muslim extremists that have now taken over the government. As a Christian, and this is just one angle of many, as a Christian, and for the Christians in Syria, they're looking at a very bad time, unfortunately, to put it lightly. There's a very good chance they're going to face increased persecution from these extremists. And Assad was a more secular government. He wasn't too, like you see in a lot of the other governments in the Middle East, he was not gung-ho against Christianity. In fact, a lot of Christians in Syria were very much in support for him because of this. In short, now that the HTS, which is not going to, they're extremists, they're not going to cooperate, has taken over, we're looking at a very long and bloody period that's going to be unfolding for Syria. Not only all of this, but there's, of course, a third faction that stems from the Kurds in the area that also probably wants to try to claim a stake in what may be left of Syria after all this. So those are all factors to consider for the upcoming time.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's certainly going to be very difficult for the Christians because, as you mentioned, the Assad government protected Christians and did not persecute them. Assad has been pictured with Christian leaders. So we know that versus these terror groups, he was in support of their religious liberty. So these terror groups want to exterminate Christians in Syria, and that could lead to an exodus of Syrians and potentially worsen Europe's refugee crisis. David, what do you think of this, and could it worsen that problem?
I believe that Israel saw this as a lesser of two evils, because the previous establishment was aligned with Iran, and Israel, in an attempt to overthrow them because they were aligned with Iran, supported another extremist group through arms. They were giving arms to HTS, and they were also nicknamed to be HTS nicknamed to have the Israeli Air Force by their side. So Israel has been supportive of HTS, and although it's not going to be good for Christians, Israel just sees it as self-interest. So it's going to be good for Israel. At least that's what they believe, and they believe that it's going to go a long way to destabilize the Iran and other regimes that were backed by the previous establishment of Syria.
Interesting. So, Michael, what is Israel's interest in opposing the Assad government and having it be toppled?
Well, of course, like David said, and as stated by the Likud party itself, they definitely have interest in the Golan Heights. That's probably the biggest component of all of this. Not only, like David said, the Iranian backing that Assad was receiving, but toppling Assad meant that's really, other than Iran, that now means that there's not a very strong opposition to Israel. They've gone in and they've essentially decimated Hamas. Hamas is pretty much no more. They will never have power again in the Palestinian area of the Middle East. They, of course, have gone towards Lebanon and have tried and have done a considerable damage to Hezbollah. And so Syria was kind of the big thing with Syria in regards to all of this is that Syria was kind of how Hezbollah got a lot of their weaponry. Iran would send it through Syria into Lebanon, and that's where Hezbollah would be getting their weaponry. But now that Assad has fallen, that means that, and as of now, we're looking at a transition period. Israel has already started going into the Golan Heights and is presumably trying to annex it, as previously stated by the right-wing Likud party and Netanyahu himself. So that's kind of what we're seeing in terms of the tie between Israel and Syria. They've wanted the Assad, or I believe it's called their Baathists. They've wanted that regime gone for quite a while now. You can find reports in '96 stating how they wanted Syria gone. It's very similar to how they viewed Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Those two were kind of seen as, and specifically, they were somewhat connected. They weren't the greatest of friends, but they definitely weren't the greatest of enemies. So with Assad now gone, that means Syria is just now, Israel has another country that is not going to go against them as much as previously. Really now, Iran is their only major enemy in the area, their only major country of contention. So we're probably going to see Israel really start to focus its sights now more so than ever on Iran, now that they're really the main opposition Israel is probably going to have.
But Greg, I want to ask you something. So, Israel has pretty much taken care of the problem that is Hamas, and you're also seeing like Iran go ahead and try to propose solutions, which does mean leaving the Jews in peace and allowing them to live in the Middle East. Why do you think that Israel has such a problem with Iran, and why do you think they're still trying to sort of go into all of these different territories? It started with Hamas, and now it went to Syria. Where else is it going to lead, and why?
Yeah, I've seen different rhetoric from Iran. The Ayatollah Khomeini, for instance, consistently calls America and Israel the Great Satan. So I haven't seen anything from him regarding respect for the Jewish population. I think that he views Jews like Hitler did, and that he wants them exterminated. He is an anti-Semite. He's a Jew hater. And just the fundamental difference between his religion and ideology versus the Jewish state of Israel, which I would argue is trying to live in peace, but being bullied by its Middle Eastern radical Islamic neighbors. So it's certainly a shame that they are unable to do that and coexist in peace because they are continuously antagonized.
So regarding what you said between these radical Islamist groups that are in the Middle East, I found something very interesting that it makes sense to me what you're saying, but then I read this and I thought it was equally interesting. So here it says, in 2019, an outgoing Israeli army commander, Gadi Eisenkot, confirmed suspicions that as well as medical aid, Israel had been providing lethal material support for Syrian jihadists, and these are the people that are now in power. Eisenkot said that Israel had been years providing light arms weapons to rebel groups along the Syrian-Israeli border. Eisenkot also acknowledged that we carried out thousands of attacks in recent years without taking responsibility and without asking for credit. Israeli support for these groups actually went well beyond the light arms, Eisenkot acknowledged. In September 2018, Foreign Policy magazine reported that Israel had funded at least 12 rebel groups in southern Syria, based on reports from more than 24 commanders and rank-and-file members of these groups. These transfers included assault rifles, machine guns, mortar launchers, transport vehicles. Israeli security agencies delivered the weapons through 3 gates connecting the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights to Syria, the same crossings Israel used to deliver humanitarian aid to residents of southern Syria from years of civil war. Israel, and this is very interesting as well, also provided salaries to rebel fighters, paying each one about $75 a month, and supplied additional money the groups used to buy arms on the Syrian black market, according to the Syrian rebels and local journalists. So what it sounds like to me from, an Israeli source itself is that Israel was, and there's also the United States, there's a U.S. aspect to this. I think Trump himself has commented on it that during the Obama administration, because we considered these groups, these were the light moderates, remember that. We were giving them a lot of support ourselves. I think Turkey also had was also giving them support. And that came in the form of weapons. Why? why would this, this Islamic group be receiving all of this weaponry, all of this support from both the United States? Because once again, this is Al-Qaeda. There's really no other way to put it. They can call it whatever they want. HTS, al-Nusra. This is Al-Qaeda in its base form. Why would we be giving support to the same people that toppled the Twin Towers in 9/11, who committed the terrorist attacks? They need no introduction. Where do we stand to gain from that? And more importantly, what does Israel stand to gain from that? I think
I think it'll backfire on Israel. I think it's a mistake of the United States and it's a mistake of Israel to support these extremist groups. There are no moderate Syrian rebels. They're all radical Islamic terrorists. And frankly, we should have no backing whatsoever of any of these groups. That being said, I think that the perspective from the Israelis is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Just how in the 1980s, the United States backed the Taliban in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union. We saw that was a disaster. Never should have done that in the first place.
100%.
So I think that Israel will come to regret backing these extremist groups because they are anti-Semites. They hate the Jewish state. And it's not in their interest to further destabilize the region. I think they're making a mistake and that they should have pursued some sort of cooperative agreement with Syria versus trying to topple Assad, who provided stability for the region despite many, many bad things he's done and oppressive policies.
Okay. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I understand what you're saying. David, you want to say something?
Yeah, but can we all agree that America shouldn't be involved in the whole Syrian conflict because neither of those groups really benefit us in any way, shape, or form. We should primarily be focused on America more and stop trying to go into every single foreign conflict between a bad group and another bad group that just doesn't really matter to the average American person.
Oh, absolutely agree. It's not our business, and we don't benefit from either side winning.
Yeah, no, like I said, from my perspective, at the end of the day, as a nationalist, I don't think we want a global hegemon in the area, or I should say rather a regional hegemon, and whether that be Iran or Israel or I don't think Syria is going to be one anytime soon as of right now, but you understand what I'm saying. I don't think we should have a very peace, as difficult as that may be. Our approach should be more centered towards peace in the area and a more stabilized Middle East, which I think would be great not only for America, but I think the world would agree that is, that would be a great thing, a great development in the modern world because we've been plagued by this conflict for who knows how many years.
Yeah, and the Europeans are certainly suffering from the mass influx of refugees, the rape, the murder, the crime. It has to stop, and people are villainized for attacking this issue in Europe, but we know who's doing it. We know it has to stop, and change will come to Europe someday, I hope. That being said, thanks everyone so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We upload 3 times a week. If you'd like to reach out to us, feel free at youthbombs@alatrarepublicans.com. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much, everyone.